Dr. Yansu floated gently in the zero-gravity lab of the research station. Her crystal body sparkled blue and green as she moved closer to the strange object on the metal table. The thing looked old, very old. It was about the size of a dinner plate, but much thicker. Strange symbols covered its dark surface like frozen lightning. "Be careful with that," said her friend Heian-Wu from across the room. His fish-like body swam inside a clear water suit that let him move around the station. "We still don't know what it does." Jiansu touched the object with one of her crystal fingers. It felt warm, which was odd because everything else in the lab was cold. "The energy readings keep changing," she said. "It's like the thing is alive." Their third teammate Jinna drifted nearby. Her body looked like colorful smoke trapped in a glass container. The Zephyrian's voice came through the stations. "Speakers. Maybe we should wait for the senior scientists to come back from their meeting." But Yansu had always been too curious for her own good. That's what made her a good scientist, but sometimes it got her into trouble. She had been studying this artifact for 3 days now, ever since the mining robots found it deep inside the asteroid where their station was built. "Look at these patterns," she said, running her finger along the strange symbols. "They're not random. It's some kind of language, but not like any we know." The research station Kepler's Haven was small, but important. It sat on a big asteroid far from any planets. Scientists from 3 different alien races worked together here, studying old things they found in space. The Vorthok people like Yansu were made of living crystal and were very good at sensing energy. The Deloni like Huan-Wu lived in water and had great memories. The Zephyrians like Jinna were made of gas and could think very fast. All 3 races were peaceful. They had never fought wars like some other species in the galaxy. They preferred to learn and explore rather than fight. "The quantum scanner is picking up something new," Yansu said, looking at her instruments. The numbers on the screen were dancing around like crazy. It's almost like the artifact is trying to connect to something far away. She adjusted the scanning beam to get a better reading. The artifact began to glow softly, which made all 3 scientists step back. "Yansu, maybe you should stop," Heian-Wu said nervously. His tentacles were twitching, which meant he was scared, but it was too late. The artifact suddenly blazed with bright light that filled the whole lab. The scientists had to cover their eyes or sensors. The station's power systems began to hum louder as something drew energy from the main reactor. When the light faded, the artifact was floating above the table. Geometric patterns raced across its surface like living things. It spun slowly, and with each turn, it sent out pulses of energy that made the station shake. "What did we do?" Jinna's gaseous form flickered with colors that meant fear and worry. Yansu checked her instruments with growing alarm. "It's transmitting something. A signal using quantum entanglement technology. But this is far beyond anything we can build." The message was simple but terrifying. It came through on every communication channel the station had. "Emergency. Coordinates attached. Immediate assistance required." "Can we shut it off?" Wei asked, swimming quickly to the control panel. Yansu tried everything she could think of. She cut power to the lab, tried to block the signal, even attempted to move the artifact. Nothing worked. Ancient device had its own power source now and would not stop broadcasting. "The signal is getting stronger," she reported. "It's not just going to nearby systems. This quantum entanglement is reaching across the entire galaxy." The 3 scientists looked at each other with growing fear. They belonged to peaceful races that had never needed to call for military help. Their part of the galaxy was safe and quiet. But now they had accidentally sent out a distress call to unknown listeners. "Who do you think will hear it?" asked quietly. "I don't know," Yansu replied. "But whoever built this device was very advanced, maybe more advanced than all our civilizations combined." Hours passed. The artifact kept spinning and transmitting. The scientists tried to contact their homeworlds, but the quantum signal was interfering with their communications. They were alone on the station with a device they could not control. Heian-Wu was checking the long-range sensors when he made a discovery that chilled all of them. "Something is coming," he said. "Multiple ships, moving very fast. I'll be here in 3 days." "From which direction?" Yansu asked. the quarantine zone, Hyenwu whispered. The signal reached the Sol system. All three scientists felt their hearts sink. The Sol system was home to the humans, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Humans came from a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. They were violent, unpredictable, and had been banned from cooperative space for good. Reason, and now, because of their accident, the humans were coming. Captain Jamin stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the glowing screen that showed the strange message. The Eternal Vigilance was one of Earth's biggest fighting ships, with thick armor and powerful weapons. But right now, Jamin was more puzzled than ready for battle. "Sir, we've been getting this signal for 6 hours now," said Lieutenant Sujin from her station. She was young, but very smart with computers and communications. "It's coming from deep in cooperative space." Jamin rubbed his tired eyes. He had been a soldier for 20 years, fighting in wars across human space, but this was different. The Galactic Cooperative had never talked to humans before. They were too scared. "What does it say exactly?" he asked. "Emergency coordinates attached. Immediate assistance required." Sujin read from her screen. "The quantum signature is unlike anything in our databases. It's very old technology, but also very advanced." The captain walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. Earth hung in the distance like a blue and white marble. Humans had been stuck in their own solar system for 40 years because other alien races thought they were too dangerous. It wasn't completely wrong. Humans did come from a death world where everything was trying to kill everything else. Had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would destroy most other species. This made them tough, but it also made other aliens very nervous. "Sir, Admiral Doyan wants to speak with you," called Communications Officer Minky from across the bridge. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Doyan was an old man with gray hair and scars from many battles. He had been fighting for human rights in the galaxy for decades. "Captain, I need your assessment of this signal," the Admiral said without wasting time. "It's definitely a distress call, sir. Someone in cooperative space is in serious trouble. But I don't understand why they would call us. They've made it very clear they don't want humans anywhere near their territory." Admiral Doyan nodded slowly. "That's what makes this interesting. There's someone is desperate enough to ask for our help, or something has gone very wrong." Jamin thought about this. The cooperative races were peaceful, but not stupid. They had amazing technology for science and exploration. If they were calling for help, especially from humans, the situation must be really bad. "What are your orders?" "Sir?" he asked. "I'm putting together Task Force Prometheus. 12 ships, including yours. We leave for those coordinates in 6 hours. Sir, if we enter cooperative space without permission, could start a war," Sujin said quietly. The Admiral's expression became stern. "Lieutenant, someone sent out a distress call. In human culture, we answer distress calls. It doesn't matter who sent it or where it came from." This was true. Humans had a strong belief about helping people in trouble, even strangers and even enemies. It was one of the things that made them different from other species in the galaxy. After the Admiral signed off, Jamin called his senior officers together. The bridge became busy as they prepared for the mission. "What do we know about the cooperative races?" asked Commander Sayoko, the ship's weapons officer. "They're peaceful," Jamin replied. "The Vorthok are made of living crystal and are very good with energy. The Deloni live in water and have perfect memories. The Zephyrians are made of gas and think very fast. None of them have real military ships. So if something is threatening them, it must be pretty serious," Sayoko said. "That's what worries me," the captain admitted. The next few hours were busy as the human fleet prepared to leave. The Eternal Vigilance was joined by 11 other warships. Each ship carried hundreds of trained soldiers and the most advanced weapons humanity could build. Other species in the galaxy thought humans were monsters because they were so good at fighting. But humans saw themselves as protectors, had learned to fight because they had to survive on a dangerous world. Now they used that strength to help others. "All ships report ready," Sujin announced. J-Min sat in his captain's chair and looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had volunteered to risk their lives for aliens who had rejected them. It said something good about human nature. "Helm, set course for the coordinates and the distress signal. Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," replied the pilot. Estimated travel time is 3 days. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Jameen wondered what they would find. The cooperative races had avoided humans for decades because they were afraid. Now something had scared them enough to call for help from the very people they feared most. Sir Sujin called out, "I'm detecting other responses to the signal. Something big is moving from the galaxy's edge toward the same coordinates." Jameen felt a chill run down his spine. If something out there was dangerous enough to threaten the cooperative and powerful enough to travel across the galaxy, then humanity might be flying into the biggest fight of their history, but they would still answer the call for help. That's what humans did. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a pack of metal wolves. 12 black warships appeared around the small research station, their weapons powered but not aimed. Captain Jamin watched the alien structure through his main screen and felt surprised. The station looked nothing like human buildings. It was made of smooth curves and flowing lines, with parts that seemed to grow rather than be built. Soft lights glowed through crystal walls. Looked more like a piece of art than a place where people worked. "It's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Sujin from her station. "And completely defenseless," added Commander Siako. "Am I reading any weapons or shields? How do these people protect themselves?" "They don't," Jamin replied quietly. "They've never needed to." Inside the research station, Dr. Yansu and her team huddled in their emergency shelter. The walls were thick and strong, but they felt very thin when 12 human warships surrounded their home. The crystal scientist's body was flashing red and orange, colors that meant extreme fear. She had studied human culture from far away, but seeing their ships up close was terrifying. Each vessel was longer than their entire station and covered with weapon systems that could destroy planets. "They're trying to communicate," Hyenwu said, his fish-like body shaking in its water suit. "Standard cooperative peaceful contact protocols." The translation system crackled to life. Human voice filled their shelter, speaking in calm, measured tones. "Research station. This is Captain Jamin of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress signal. What is your emergency status?" The 3 scientists looked at each other in panic. They had accidentally called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Now those predators were asking what was wrong. Dr. Yansu forced herself to respond. Though her crystal structure was still flashing fear colors, We did not mean to summon you. Is the artifact activated by accident? We require assistance understanding its function, not military intervention." There was a pause. Then the human captain spoke again, and his voice sounded gentler somehow. "Understood. We're here to help, not harm. May we send a small team aboard to examine this artifact?" Help Jinnah's gaseous form flickered with confusion colors. "But you are humans. You are warriors from a death world." On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Captain Jamin could see how scared the aliens were through the video feed. Their every movement showed creatures who had never known violence, suddenly faced with humanity's reputation for warfare. "Sir, they're terrified of us," Sujin observed sadly. "I know," Jamin replied. "Can you blame them? Every story they've heard about humans involves fighting and destruction. But we're here to help," Commander Sioko said. "They don't know that. To them, we're monsters." Jamin opened the communication channel again. "Dr. Yansu, I understand your fear. But someone sent a distress call, and humans always answer distress calls. We will not harm you or your team. I give you my word as a captain and as a human being." Dr. Yansu had read about human promises in her studies. Despite their violent reputation, humans were known to keep their word, especially when given formally. It was one of the few good things other species said about them. "Very well," she said finally. "But please, send only a small group and no weapons." "Agreed," Jamin replied. 20 minutes later, a small human shuttle docked with the research station. Dr. Yansu and her team waited nervously in the main lab. Watching as 3 humans in simple uniforms came aboard, Captain Jamin was not what they expected. He was tall and strong like all humans from a gravity world, but his face was kind. He moved slowly and kept his hands visible, like someone trying not to scare a wild animal. "Thank you for allowing us aboard," he said politely. "This is Dr. Woojin, our science officer, and Sergeant Yunmi, our technical specialist." Dr. Woojin, was a small woman with gentle eyes who immediately went to the artifact. "Fascinating," she said. "The quantum resonance patterns are unlike anything in human databases." "Or ours," Dr. Yansu admitted, her fear beginning to fade slightly. "It activated when we were studying it. Now it will not stop transmitting." "What is it transmitting?" asked Captain Jamin. "Distress call. But we think now it might be something else. Maybe a warning." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Sergeant Yunmi checked her portable scanner and her face went pale. "Captain, we have massive contacts approaching from the galactic edge. Whatever this beacon called, it wasn't just us." On the main display screen, dots of light began appearing at the edge of sensor range. Hundreds of them, moving fast toward the station. Dr. Yansu's crystal body turned white with terror. "What are those things?" Captain Jamin studied the readings with growing alarm. The objects were huge, bigger than human battleships, and they were coming straight for the research station. "I don't know," he said grimly. "No. But I think we're about to find out why that artifact was built." The peaceful first contact between humans and the cooperative had just become something much more dangerous. The enemy ships came out of deep space like nightmares made real. They were massive, each one the size of a city, with strange twisted metal that seemed to move and change shape. Dark energy crackled around their hulls, and they moved in perfect formation like a swarm of deadly insects. "By all the gods," whispered Admiral Duyan from his command ship. "What are those things?" Dr. Wu Jin was working frantically with Dr. Yansu at the artifact, trying to understand what they were facing. "The quantum signature matches ancient records," she said, her voice tight with fear. "These are harvesters, machine intelligences that devour entire civilizations. They've been sleeping for thousands of years," Dr. Yansu added, her crystal body flashing urgent warning colors. "The beacon didn't call for help. It woke them up." Captain Jamin felt his blood turn cold. Through the station's windows, he could see the alien fleet growing larger by the minute. There were hundreds of ships, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. "How long were they asleep?" he asked. "Our records say they last appeared 10,000 years ago," Dr. Yansu replied. "They destroyed 17 different civilizations before something stopped them. What stopped them? We don't know. The records are incomplete." On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Lieutenant Sujin was counting enemy contacts with growing horror. "Sir, I'm reading over 300 harvester vessels. Each one is at least 10 times the size of our biggest ship." Commander Siako checked his weapon systems. "We're completely outgunned. Our entire fleet couldn't scratch one of those things." But Captain Jamin is already making the decision that would define humanity's first real contact with the Galactic Cooperative. "All ships, form defensive positions around the research station. Prepare for battle." "Sir, this is suicide," Sioko protested. "We should retreat and warn Earth." "No," Jamin said firmly. "These people called for help." He answered, "That's what humans do." Dr. Yansu watched in amazement as the human warships moved between her station and the approaching harvester fleet. She had spent her whole life believing humans were violent monsters who only cared about fighting. But here they were, 12 small ships preparing to face impossible odds to protect strangers who had feared them. "Why are they doing this?" asked Captain Jamin. "Because it's right," he replied simply. "And because someone has to." The first harvester ship opened fire with a beam of pure destruction that could have melted a moon. Captain Park's destroyer took the hit on its shields and armor, the entire ship glowing white-hot. But it held together and fired back with everything. The battle erupted across the asteroid field like a storm of light and fury. Human ships darted between the massive enemy vessels like angry wasps, too small to be easily hit, but too brave to retreat. Commander Minho's cruiser sacrificed itself to protect a group of fleeing cooperative science vessels, ramming straight into a harvester's weapon array. The explosion lit up space for millions of kilometers. Captain Yunji led her squadron in a desperate attack on the enemy flagship, her ships firing everything they had before being swept away by return fire. But their sacrifice created an opening that allowed other human vessels to rescue more alien civilians from the research station's shelter. Dr. Yansu watched these supposed monsters throw their lives away to protect people who had never shown them anything but fear and hatred. Tears of liquid crystal ran down her face as she realized how wrong her people had been. "We have to help them," she told her team. "They're dying for us." "But what can we do?" Hyan Wu asked, his aquatic form trembling. "We don't have weapons or warships. We have the artifact," Dr. Yansu replied. "And we have our knowledge." She turned to Dr. Wu Jin, who was still working at the control panel despite the battle. "Raging outside the beacon technology. Can we reverse it?" The human scientist looked up with sudden understanding. "Instead of calling them, we could disrupt their communications." "Break their coordination?" "Exactly. The harvesters work as a single mind. If we can cut the connections between them, they'll start attacking each other," Dr. Wu Jin finished. "Working together." The alien and human scientists began modifying the ancient artifact. Outside, the battle continued to rage. Admiral Duyan's flagship was taking heavy damage, its armor cracked and atmosphere leaking into space. "How much longer do you need?" Captain Jamin asked, his own ship shaking under enemy fire. "Almost there," Dr. Yansu replied. "The modifications are complete. Activating disruption field in 3.2.1. The artifact blazed with new purpose. Instead of calling across space, it now sent out waves of interference that crashed into the harvester fleet like an invisible tsunami. The perfect coordination of the enemy ships began to break down. Harvester vessels that had moved in perfect formations suddenly began firing on each other. Some drifted helplessly as their control systems failed. Others spun out of control, their ancient machine minds confused and lost. "It's working," shouted Lieutenant Sujin from her damaged console. The tide of battle had turned, but the cost had been terrible. Half the human fleet was destroyed or crippled, yet they had saved not just the research station, but potentially the entire galaxy. The harvester fleet was breaking apart like a broken clock. Ships that had moved together perfectly now spun wildly through space, firing at each other or drifting powerless. The disruption field from the modified artifact had shattered their shared mind, leaving them confused and lost. Captain Jamin watched from his damaged bridge as the enemy began to retreat. The remaining harvester ships gathered their broken fleet and disappeared back into the dark edges of space, fleeing like wounded animals. "They're gone," reported Lieutenant Sujin, her voice filled with disbelief. "All remaining contacts are jumping to hyperspace." But the victory had come at a terrible price. The 12 human ships that had answered the distress call, only 5 were still able to fight. The others were either destroyed or so badly damaged they could barely move. Dr. Yansu floated through the research station's corridors, her crystal body glowing with colors of grief and gratitude. Through the windows, she could see the wreckage of human ships drifting in space. Good people had died to protect her and her colleagues. She found Captain Jamin in the station's medical bay, where human and alien doctors were working together to treat the wounded. The captain had a bandage around his head, and his uniform was torn, but he was helping carry supplies. "Captain," she said quietly, "I need to speak with you." They went to the observation deck, where they could see the stars and the floating debris. From the battle, for a long moment, neither spoke. "We were wrong about your people," Dr. Yansu finally said. "We thought you were monsters. We thought you only cared about fighting and conquest." Jamin looked tired but not angry. "Can you blame your people for thinking that? We do come from a world where everything tries to kill everything else. Now, we are good at fighting because we had to be. But you didn't fight for conquest today. You fought to protect strangers who had rejected you for 40 years. Why?" The captain was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because someone called for help, and humans always answer calls for help. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from." Dr. Yansu's crystal structure glowed with understanding. "You are not monsters. You are protectors." 6 months later, the Cooperative Council met on the beautiful water world of Aquatica Prime. Representatives from dozens of peaceful species gathered in the great crystal dome that served as their parliament, but today was different. Today, they were meeting with humans for the first time. Admiral Duyan stood before the assembled aliens. No longer in exile from quarantine space, but humanity's first official ambassador to the galaxy. His uniform was clean and pressed, but he still carried scars from the battle at Kepler's Haven. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "6 months ago, your people were afraid of us. You saw us as violent creatures from a death world who could only bring destruction." Any of the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably, remembering their fear and prejudice. "But when danger came," Doyan continued, "when an ancient evil threatened everything you had built, humans answered your call for help. We didn't ask for payment or territory or special treatment. We came because it was right." Dr. Yansu rose from her place among the Vorthok delegation. Her crystal body now glowed with colors of respect and friendship. "The human admiral speaks truth, and the harvesters came. When our peaceful civilizations faced extinction, only the humans stood between us and destruction." Destruction. A holographic display showing the battle statistics. They lost 7 ships and 300 brave souls protecting people who had never shown them kindness. They proved that strength without compassion is meaningless, but compassion without strength cannot protect what we love. The Deloni representative, an elderly being whose aquatic form rippled with emotion, spoke next. "The cooperative has existed for 2,000 years based on peace and cooperation, but we learned that peace must sometimes be defended with force. And we learned," added the Zephorian delegate, her gaseous form shimmering with agreement, "that those we feared as monsters may actually be our greatest guardians." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, the cooperative formally invited a warrior species to join their alliance, but not as conquerors or rulers, as protectors. Admiral Doyan felt emotion tighten his throat as he accepted the formal invitation. "We may be from a death world," he told the assembly, "but that only means we understand the true cost of peace. We will guard it with our lives." 1 year later, joint human cooperative defense stations orbited key worlds throughout peaceful space. Human officers worked alongside alien scientists, sharing knowledge and protecting the galaxy's most vulnerable civilizations. Captain Jamin, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of the new station, orbiting Dr. Yensu's homeworld. Through the windows, he could see human patrol ships flying alongside cooperative science vessels. Admiral called his communications officer. "We're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. Unknown hostiles attacking a mining colony." Man smiled and settled into his command chair. "Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Someone needs help." The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy's former outcasts had become its most trusted defenders, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the desire to conquer, but from the willingness to protect those who cannot protect themselves.